Oh, I see here?
We'll give him the comfy seat. The seat right there.
Here.
Right there. We'll give you the comfier seat. I'm John Lewis. I'm a deputy DA. Do you mind if Mr. Durst or Bob? You tell me.
Bob is fine.
Okay. So Bob, basically, I'm from Los Angeles County, and I'm here to speak to you. Before we start, I want to let you know that I feel like I know you. I've never met you. I feel like I know you very well, and very interested in talking about a lot of different things. And I know, I know it's probably a very uncomfortable day for you right now, and I understand. So the situation, obviously, there's some information that we'd like to share with you, things that we know. We'd like to hear some things that you know. Obviously, it is absolutely your right whether you want to speak to us or not. I'm definitely have some things I'd like to tell you. Detective Whalen, Mike's going to advise you of your Miranda rights. And are you cold? Can we get you something?
It is a little cold in here, yeah.
Do you want to get a blanket?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get it.
Do you want any drink, some coffee?
Coffee would be great.
What do you, how do you take it?
Black.
Black, all right. I wouldn't mind some myself.
Before I get started on that, Mr. Durst, I can just get your address? Go ahead.
My address?
Yeah. You have an address in
Houston,
What is it?
2520
Okay.
Robin Hood Street.
Okay. Is that one word, Robin Hood, or two?
Yeah,
One word?
one word.
Okay. And that's street?
Houston 77006.
Okay. 3706.
I'm sorry, it's 77005.
Okay. And is it a house or apartment?
An apartment building. It's apartment 1405.
1405. Okay. And how long have you lived there, sir?
Almost 10 years.
Okay. And you live there by yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Durst, you have a phone number or a
713
Okay.
807-8706.
And this is a cell phone?
That's the that's the line in the house.
Okay, the landline?
Yes.
That's your house phone, okay. 807-807-06. How about a cell phone?
713
Okay.
248 1144.
Okay. Any other phone numbers? Any other phone numbers besides those two? Do you have any other phone numbers?
In New York.
Okay, what would that one be? Is that a business number or just another residence number?
Another residence.
Okay.
212
Okay.
925 3200.
Okay. And where is that residence?
That's on Lenox Avenue in New York.
Do you have the address?
Yes. 218 Lenox Avenue.
That's in Manhattan?
Yeah.
And is there a unit number for that one, sir?
That's a building. I own that building.
You own the building. Okay. Where's that? Lenox and what's the cross street there?
121.
Okay. 121. So that's on the west side or the east side? West side of Manhattan or east side?
Harlem. Uptown.
Okay. Well, that would be the west side.
Oh, here you
It's
go.
on the west
Thank
side.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob.
Okay. So it's actually it is in Manhattan, but it's kind of
You want this on you or you want it around you?
I'll
Here,
take
want to stand up?
No,
Yeah.
I'll definitely take it.
All right. I got a little more padding to protect me against the weather here. The temp. You guys that on? No? All right, wait a minute.
I think we missed.
All right, let's try it again. A little higher. Hold on. Wait a minute. Give me your hand here. You can stand up here. Why don't you stand? You can put it on yourself. Here you go. All right. Okay, only 2 rules on the coffee. 1, you can't throw it at either one of us, at any of us, and you can't throw it on the computer. Fair enough?
Very fair.
Okay, here you go. All right. It's black like you want it.
Okay, so you got the house, or the apartment in Robin Hood and Houston. You got a place in Manhattan or Harlem on Lenox. Any other residents? I mean, not necessarily places that you own
Yeah,
as properties, but
yes.
what else would that be?
No, those are my residences.
Those are your 2 primary residences. Okay, none other than those 2.
So here's the situation. We're going to read you your Miranda rights, and when you're finished, I can tell you that if you'd like, obviously, you'll be able, if you so choose, to not speak with us. If you also would like, you can also tell me that although you don't want to say anything to us, that you want to listen to what we have to say. It's completely up to you. So what's going to happen is Mike's going to read them to you right now.
Okay, Mr. Durst, I know you don't hear that well, but I'll do my best so you can hear me, all right? You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand? You have to acknowledge me.
I understand.
Okay, thank you. Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay. You have the right to the presence of an attorney before and during any questioning. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you free of charge before any questioning if you want. Do you understand?
I understand.
Okay. So with that, we would like to ask you some questions.
Do you understand the rights that you've been given?
Yes.
So at this point, I'm just going to start. So first of all, I'm a prosecutor with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, and what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, I would kind of like to start at the beginning. I actually, it's kind of weird for me because I feel like I know you even though I've never met you. So I want to kind of go back. I know a little bit of your background. I know the situation, with your mom and with your dad. My understanding is that going way back, did you actually witness your mom on the roof? Did you actually see that?
Yes.
Because I know your brother Doug, who, just from what I can tell, I am gathering is not your favorite person. Am I correct on that?
Say that again.
Your brother Doug is not your favorite person. Was that a fair statement?
That's fair.
There was a line. We have, obviously you're aware of the Jinx.
Obviously.
Yeah, and there was a line where I think it's a deposition for Douglas, and that's gonna just bug me. There was a deposition for Douglas, and they end up asking him, "Is it true that you hired a lawyer to protect yourself against Robert Durst?" And he says, "Yes," and very formal. And then they ask you the same question. Do you remember what you answered?
No.
You were asked, do you know why your brother Douglas hired somebody to protect him against you, hired a bodyguard to protect him against you? Do you remember what you answered?
Yeah, I said he's a pussy.
It is still my favorite thing that I've heard you say. So I understand that, obviously, going back, I know that you, going way back, you went to Lehigh, right?
Right.
And then, and it sounds like is it fair to say you enjoyed the 60s?
Yes.
And that would mean, and by the way, if there's anything that I ask you that you don't want to answer,
I won't answer it.
okay. I've seen all the interviews that you did with Mark and Andrew, and one of the things that really was interesting to me is that you you pretty much, you said at the beginning that you would answer all their questions, and you answered almost all their questions. So you went to Lehigh, you graduated from Lehigh, right?
Yeah.
You go out to UCLA, go out to Los Angeles, and then it sounds like the reason was to go to grad school, but it sounds like it was more
Fun.
pot, what did they call the screen therapy, etc.
Yeah.
Did that do much for you, or no?
No, that's it. Lehigh was all men.
Okay.
Very, very structured. UCLA was fun.
Did when you came out here, well, I'm saying here because I'm thinking I'm still in LA. When you came out to Los Angeles, at that point in time, was it your plan to I'm gonna take over the business from Seymour, or it seems like you never liked it, right? It was never what you enjoyed.
I never liked it, that's fair.
When you came out here, were you planning at that point? Maybe you didn't have a plan. I'm trying to remember. I think you came out here in around 1965. Is that right?
Yeah, I graduated Lehigh in '65 and I went right to UCLA.
And when you came, so in 65, you would have been, I think, 21, 22?
22.
22. At that point in time, had you worked for your dad before then, or no?
Yes, a couple of summers.
A couple of summers. And I know that your grandfather started the organization, and then your dad and your uncle took it over. And I know it's grown, obviously, ever since. Was it, when you were a young man in the mid-'60s, it was nothing like it is today, right? In terms of its size and scope, or was it even then? It was still pretty.
It was substantial.
But it's grown a lot.
Much bigger now.
Yeah. So you come out here, and I know that's when you met Susan, and I know that I'm going to come back to it. I know that she was somebody that was important to you, and that you cared about. Is that right?
Best friend.
Yeah, and I. One of the things that really surprises me about you when I listen to you is that you will admit to things that most people lie about. So I'll give you an example. Well, when you're interviewed by Mike Struck.
Wait a second. Yes,
Mike Struck, the New York detective.
Not Mike Whalen.
Yeah, no, yeah. When you're interviewed by Mike Struck originally, and you're relating this story to Mark and Andrew, because obviously there was no video of your original interview with Struck, so I've heard the 20 hours with Mark and Andrew. Mike Struck, this is you talking. You said you went in there and you say to him, so I told him, the marriage was fine, everything was good. And then he went and talked to her friends and he found out not so much. So so clearly your original statement to Struck wasn't true. I mean, right? That the marriage was good.
My original statement to Mike Struck. I guess I reported that Kathy was missing.
Right, but I mean
And he asked about the marriage,
Right.
and I said there were some minor problems, and then her friend said there were major problems.
Right, and it was interesting, even during during the interview with Mark and Angie, you were asked about her family, and you would say, you were asked. There's a question where you're asked, was it kind of Bob meets the average American family? And you respond, you say, no, it was more like Bob was forced to, and then you go on and you explain. And what really kind of caught me was that most people, when they're talking to anybody, I mean, police, family, etc., most people are very much concerned with what other people think of them. And so what will happen is that they will kind of make themselves out to be nicer, better, etc. And I noticed that with about 90% of the things you're asked, you are brutally honest. I mean, more honest than most people that I've seen for 90%. But I'm wondering, is that something you're aware of about yourself in comparison to other people, or no? I mean, is that something, am I pointing out something that you've ever thought about or was aware of, or no?
More or less, I'm certainly aware of it.
Yeah, but what it means is that for the other 10% or 5%, whatever it is, when you're not as straightforward, it becomes easier, for you to maybe fudge a little bit. And so, I've watched everything, and I'm gonna lay my cards on the table. I'm here talking to you today because I truly believe, Bob, I don't think you feel that badly about Morris. That's my view. I don't think you feel badly about Morris. I don't know how you feel about Kathy, but here's what I do know. I know that when you killed Susan, that was not something you wanted to do. Do you know how I know that? I mean, are you interested in why I know that?
I'm going to stay away from killing Susan.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. So do you mind if I tell you why I think that?
Go right ahead.
Well, so the reason that I think that is because you know that the killer left a note, right?
I know that.
The cadaver note. And forgetting for a second, just talking about the killer, why would you think the killer would have left a note?
I'm going to stay away from that.
Okay, let me go another way. Forget about Susan for a second. I just want to talk about somebody in general. Let's say that somebody is murdered. So we're not talking about Susan right now. And the killer kills them and sends a note wanting their body found. So I want to be clear, we're not talking about Susan. I'm asking you, in that scenario, so you're a police officer, in my case. So in this example, you can't have smoked any pot that day. It's just not good for the, as a police officer, you're going to have no pot for that day. So
I've been smoking pot every day of my life for as long as I can remember.
Right. So that means, since it's my example, so for this day, you're a police officer for the day, you're a detective, and you get called, there's a crime scene. Again, we're not talking about Susan, and you end up finding out that the killer has left a note. What would that tell you about how that killer felt about the person that they had killed? A note basically saying, hey, here's where the body is. Something you're comfortable answering, or no?
No.
Well, okay, so let me go on. So here's what I think. Well, here's what I know. I deal, Bob, with all kinds of people. So I've been, do you want me to tell you a little bit about what I do and who I am?
Whatever you want to talk to me about. It's more pleasant in here than out there.
Okay, all right. So I'm a deputy DA. I've been a prosecutor for a little over 20 years. And my area, what I do cold murder cases. And I do complex circumstantial murder cases. And I have dealt with all kinds of people. Not most of the people that I deal with. I have kind of a weird area. Most of the people that I prosecute, almost without exception, I do a lot of guys that kill their wives. I do a lot of no body cases. And most of the, probably 90% of the cases that I do, maybe more than that, the person that I'm sitting across from, they're like you. They're educated, they're smart, they're not, a dangerous individual. They're not out committing all kinds of crimes. And for most of my defendants, what happened is that on a certain night, a certain thing happened with them and their spouse, that things happen, they do something they regret, and they can't undo it.
I'm surprised there are that many of those that you have a full-time job working on.
Oh my gosh, I have LA is a big place,
Yeah.
so I think I've probably done seven or six, 7, 8 no body cases to trial, and they're very interesting because they're challenging. But what happened? So I prosecuted a guy. The last trial I did 2 trials ago. Very, very regular, nice guy. He had gotten married. But if this stuff's boring you, let me know.
No, not at all.
Okay. So I prosecuted a guy who was in high school. Real good-looking guy, star football player, star baseball player. He's the kind of guy that peaked his junior year in high school, and he was, best athlete at Torrance High School at the time. And there was a girl 2 or 3 years younger than he was, who was beautiful, and they started dating, and she ends up getting pregnant, and the two of them, she gets pregnant in her junior year, and she has the baby and comes back and finishes. He graduates and they get married. He doesn't have, he's a real hardworking guy. His dad had left him. He lived with his mom. When he graduates, he's one of those guys that's a good high school athlete, but that's all it's going to be. And so he's trying to figure out what he's going to do, and he marries Carol. And her father had a painting business, and it's funny because I've talked to his name's Mike. I've talked to Mike for hours in this case, so I got to know him very well. So this is Mike. So Mike tells me that one day he's working like a very menial job, and he says his father-in-law Milt comes up to him and he says, "Hey Mike, do you know how to paint?" And Mike says, "I go, yeah, well, I know how to paint." And Mike says, "I had no idea how to paint." And he says he goes to work for Milt, and Milt teaches him the trade. Carol's parents had 3 daughters. They had no sons. And Mike he wasn't a son-in-law, he was their son. So he and Milt were in business for 25, 30 years. And into the marriage, Carol, the wife, it was one of those situations where she outgrew this guy. Literally the day after they met, okay? She was beautiful, she was smart, and he's a very nice guy. He was a guy who, he told me, I never thought I'd own a house. I never thought I'd really have a good job. They had a little house by her parents that they bought. He had his job with his father-in-law, and he was happy. He'd come home, he'd play basketball. Carol wanted a lot more. She ends up having an affair, which he finds out about, doesn't end the marriage. And unbeknownst to him, she's having another affair at the time that she's gonna be killed. And what happens is that she has basically decided, they have 2 young kids, 7 and a 10-year-old, and she's decided that she's gonna leave him, and she wants to sell the house. And he knows he doesn't want to sell the house, because he knows that if he signs to sell the house, takes both of them, she's gonna be gone. So the day before she disappeared. And one of the things that's kind of neat about the cases that I do is that, so she disappeared the day that Ronald Reagan was shot. So it's kind of weird. So when I go back, my cases are, it's 2015, but I'm living in 1977 or 1982 or 1983. So was the day Reagan was shot, and they have an argument. The night before, they're at her parents' house for Sunday dinner, and she's upset with him. And her mother walks them back to the car. And Mike is a huge guy. He's bigger than, he's like Mike Whalen, only he's younger, much more handsome, and a little more muscular. And so what he ends up doing is they're walking back to the car, and the mother-in-law says, the daughter says, "Get in the back seat," to him. So he goes, "Okay." And her mother says, "Mike, are you gonna take that?" And it's her mom. He goes, "Yep." Gets in the back seat. They go home. According to him, she disappears. She leaves in the middle of the night, never to be seen again. Now the problem for him is that when he was talked to, he could never keep the same story about when the last time he saw her. One version is they went to bed together, then she woke in the middle of the night. Another version is something else. And the problem for him is that the last time you see your wife is a significant thing. We never found her body, and I ended up prosecuting him for murder. And after I prosecute him, after the trial's over, I begged him before trial. I had offered him a very reduced sentence on the murder because the family, they loved him. It was terrible. It was 33 or 34 years later, and they still did not want to believe that she was dead. It was really sad. And they didn't want to believe that Mike had done it because he was more like a son and a brother. So the family just wanted to know where her body was. And I offered him what would have been what we call a time-served offer, meaning just admit and tell me where the body is, and you'll get a voluntary manslaughter. He wouldn't do it. I became close to his son during the case, and he and his son were very close. The son was the third generation painter, so the son had taken over the business now. And unfortunately, Mike went to trial. He testified. He was convicted, and after he was convicted, now all of a sudden, it's not simple. He didn't come out, wasn't honest to begin with, but he ends up confessing to me that he killed her. Was very sad. And when I talked to him, he's a good guy. He's the kind of guy that if a gun was on the table, if Mike dropped his gun and it rolled over here, Mike would have said, "Hey, your gun's here," would have handed it back. He's a regular guy. But on that one night, and what turned out that had happened was that his wife had told him that she was having an affair, and her sister was going to get married in a week or so, and she wanted to bring this guy to the wedding. And he got very angry, and he killed her. And he told me that he had basically halfway convinced himself that he didn't do it. He said, it was very funny because when he was on the witness, he testified at trial, and I was having him go through like how big the trunk was in his car. We thought that he had put her body in the trunk of his car in a tarp, and he had. And he said that as I was questioning him, he could actually see what he had done, and he was still trying to deny it. The point of the story is that he was a decent guy. But he's a guy that did something terrible. And he couldn't take it back. And in the end, what he ended up doing was, he ended up admitting, here's what I did. It was hard for him because his son, who was very close to him, it was tough. And her family, but eventually, he ended up, after he was convicted, saying, "Hey, here's what I did." And I can tell you that I have spoken to him since then, and he's in prison, and it's tough for him because obviously that's not where he wanted to spend. He's actually a little bit younger than you, but not that much. He's in his early 60s. But he has told me that, at least for him, getting it off his chest, admitting to what happened, has helped. So, as you're listening, will you at least consider, you'll listen to what I'm saying, right?
Listening to everything you're saying.
Okay.
But I would like to interject
Sure.
that in 2007, my health started going to pot.
Okay.
And I got cancer of the esophagus.
Right.
And the surgeon very successfully cut out the whole esophagus.
At Baylor.
The cancer was gone, no chemo, no radiation, no none of that. But when he cut out the esophagus, he cut out other parts of my gut. And I have a problem with urinating. Now, right now, I feel I need to urinate.
Oh, okay.
So I would like to urinate.
No problem. No problem.
I'll take you over there.
Look.
It's your way.
So right now, aside from what, your current situation is, and obviously there are lots of things that I know, and I know it's tough, and I'm guessing right now you're probably nervous, is that right? And scared? I mean, it's, this is a terrible place to be, and it's not, it's certainly not the kind of lifestyle, and place that you've been. And it's, I know it's scary being here. I think that I get the impression from everything that I've listened to over the years. I think when you're talking to somebody that knows you or doesn't know you, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
No, I'm not getting this.
So, in talking to me, do you feel like I'm somebody that, hey, this guy seems like he knows a lot about me?
Sure.
Okay, I definitely do. As much as I could find out about you, I know. I've been working on this case for a couple of years, and I've done murder cases almost my entire career. And there's no question that of any suspect I've ever dealt with, you are the most interesting. It's not even close. I've told people that I've been really blessed to do a lot of interesting cases in my career. If you put every case together, they are 1% as interesting as your situation. So what I was saying was that Mike finally got to the point where, for him, he's, it's worth getting it out. I know that, as you sit here, maybe I should ask you this. As you sit here right now, kind of where do you see, what are your hopes for going forward? What are you hoping is going to happen?
Well, 72 years old.
Okay.
Cancer survivor. I have hydrocephalus.
Yep.
And that's my shunt right there.
I saw it.
And I don't blame the surgeon, and I did not sue the surgeon, but what he did for me worked out to be very bad for me. My balance is not better than when we started, and that was the purpose of the operation. And he had to do an operation on my spine before doing my head, and as a result of that,
You still don't have good movement? Oh, God. I can't, I've got the same problem that you do. My hearing is not so good. It took me a second to hear it. Yeah, that is, that's not good. You know,
So it hurts to look like that or to look like that. And at the end of the day, just walking around a little bit, and everything from here to here gets all tight and swollen. And I have to stretch for a while before I can walk anymore.
Are you able to drive a car? Can you drive a car?
Yes, I can do those
Okay.
things.
I was gonna ask you,
Anyway, so I'm 72.
right,
and
almost,
almost 72.
not till April 12th, I think.
April 12th, excellent memory. Going forward, I told my life expectancy is about 5 years. So there's not much that I could agree with anybody that somebody could offer me unless they could offer me more life,
Right.
something like that. There's just not much I can say. Listen, look at this. I just have no idea how we could reach an agreement on something.
Well, let me ask you this, and again, I'm gonna speak hypothetically, so you don't feel like you're.
If there's something that I could do that would be worthwhile for somebody else, and they could do something for me,
Okay.
then
Well-
there'd be a direction, but
Well,
I don't see much direction.
Well, let me explain kind of where things are at and what I can do potentially. Your situation, you know, where you kind of sit right now, hypothetically, because this is an important thing, and you, in a lot of ways, I think I might get an honest response from you. I want you to assume for a minute, and I'm saying this, so you're not admitting, and I'm telling you, I want you to assume that you had done some of the things, or all the things that I think you did. I want you to assume that you killed Kathy, for instance. And I know you're saying, you're denying that, right? You're saying, I didn't do that, correct?
Correct.
Well, I want you to assume you did do it. If you did do it, at this point in your life, would you have an interest in saying what happened and telling her family if you had done it, or would you go, no, you know what, no, that's not really something I would care about. I don't really care if they know where she is, what I did with her, if that had happened.
If there was something I could do for her family,
Okay.
and it would get me, then it would be worthwhile for me.
Well, so here's what I can tell you. You know that Anne's 101 now.
I had no idea.
Yeah, she is. She's 101. You know, and you know that Kathy's grandmother lived to be 100, or at least that. I don't actually know when she died. And obviously, you know, losing a daughter, you know, is difficult. Losing a
Is
sister.
she still lucid?
You know what? So I've never contacted her. So, you know, it's interesting. By the way, did you ever have any idea that we were looking at, forgetting about the Jinx for a second. So I've been working on this. We've been working on this. They haven't been working on it as long as I have. They came in late. But I've been working on this case for 2 years, and I'm curious if you had any idea that I was working on it out here.
Out here, New Orleans?
No, that's not what I mean. I'm still in Los Angeles.
Well, I assumed you would be.
Well, so I've been working on this case for all that time, trying to get to know as much as I could, trying to learn as much as I could, and trying to put it together. We tried to be careful who we contacted. So it's interesting. You know that your brother Douglas, who I've never talked to, by the way, What's interesting to me, and again, I'm telling you what I know. I know that, so again, Bob, I don't know what happened with you and Kathy in terms of the particulars. I don't know whether you planned it out. I don't know whether it was something that happened just while you were there. It would not surprise me. Some people disagree with me. The whole Prudence Sparrow situation. She looks like, I know that you had a lot of affairs. You had a great line with Mark and Andrew. You know, you were asked about this is one of the things, Bob, that you are, and I'm all over the board here, but it's interesting. I watched All Good Things. You watched All Good Things. Do you know the biggest problem with All Good Things, in my opinion? The biggest problem, do you know what it was?
I don't know.
Ryan Gosling. Do you know what the problem with Ryan Gosling was?
No.
By the way, I would love for Ryan Gosling to play me in a movie because he's a really good looking guy. Did a part of you go, that's pretty cool having a guy that good looking play me? Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah. In my movie, I would get John Lovitz or I would get Jonah Hill. But the thing about that movie, the reason it didn't work, was that Ryan Gosling's portrayal of you, he was like a very small presence. When you're talking versus when he's talking, he couldn't play you. He wasn't even, it was the real you he didn't get. By the way, again, and it's interesting to me, what made you do the movie? Do the commentary and talk to Mark and Andrew? I don't get it. What made you talk to them?
Still sort of putting that together in my own mind. But I'd been approached by 48 Hours. And way back when, I was approached by Connie Chung. And they wanted to do something like had come out with Mike Tyson, where there was all this bad stuff about him. And he was actually really a good guy.
Okay.
And they wanted to do that with me, and I never felt like that. I never felt that I was really a good guy.
You know, and that's always, that's what I'm saying, Bob. A lot of people in your position, they try to make themselves out to be a lot better person, a lot less responsible. You don't do that at all. When you were talking about Kathy and the affair, so it was interesting. And I would laugh when I watched all 20 hours of your interviews over and over again. The biggest problem with the Jinx, do you know what my feeling the biggest problem is? It doesn't, you're better than what they've got. Your natural interviews is better.
For the whole long weekend when I did the interviews for the Jinx,
Yeah.
I was on meth. The whole time I was on meth. And when I looked at the little pieces of it, I was going like this and like that. And it should have been obvious. I'm surprised my lawyer let me go ahead with it, because it just, I looked like there was something going on.
Well, so Bob, is that a way of you saying that the things that you said during that interview, you didn't understand questions or you weren't getting it? Because because before you go any further on that, certain things I know, and you seem like a straight shooter. I assume you would prefer that I be a straight shooter and not a bullshitter, right?
Sure.
Okay, I'm a straight shooter. What you just told me is bullshit. I've watched those interviews. I don't know why you did it. I still don't explain. I know your lawyers didn't want you to do it.
No, they did not want me to do it.
And they told you they didn't want you to do it repeatedly.
Repeatedly.
and you did it anyway. When you were asked during those interviews. So, for instance, you were asked about your relationship with Kathy, and you were asked about. You remember how you used to take the Polaroids, and you would take the Polaroids, and then you would have some woman over. You'd take the Polaroid before, take all the stuff down. Then when she left, match up the Polaroid and put it back, right? And you were asked by Mark and Andrew, why did you do that? And you say, or by I say Mark and Andrew, but it's Andrew, but Mark's there. And you say, because I wanted to do her and I didn't want her to know that I was married. Which, by the way, is a very, very honest answer. Clearly that's why you did it. You were then asked about, hey, how would you feel basically about the double standard if Kathy had done it? And your line was, well, it's okay for me to do it, but you better not. You were a proud bearer of the double standard. And I would assume that you knew. So your condition during those interviews, it's very clear that you understood the questions, that you understood the answers. So, I mean, you can say that you were on drugs and didn't know what was going on. I can tell you, I mean, that one won't work. It's interesting. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to say that my answers were wrong. I'm just trying to say I was during the thing. I think that what I said were the correct answers to the questions. But we were talking before about why did I do it anyway. And I think the reason I did it had to be because I was spooked, speeding.
Oh, okay. So you're saying you're not disputing that you answered this stuff.
No, I'm happy to live by the answers.
Right.
What I'm saying.
Oh, that's what made you, because I'll tell you, I've tried to figure out. So this is one of the things that's fascinating to me about you, is that you are an extremely bright guy. There's no doubt about it, and it's interesting because it seems to me that in the end, with all the money that you have, things that most of us can only dream about, it doesn't seem like you've ever been very happy. I mean, am I right?
Oh, very right.
And even more than that, it seems like that had you been the same Bob Durst and been born, Bob Smith, and your dad was a lawyer, a doctor, successful, but not what you have, that life might have been different. Might have been, you would have been more motivated. You would agree that your motivation to succeed in life, to kind of, at least in a kind of conventional way, you've never really had it, right?
No, I never really had it. And part of succeeding is that you've got to fight, whether you like to fight or don't like to fight. My brother, who took over the company, he liked to fight. Kathy liked to fight. I don't like to fight.
Yeah, and listen, I absolutely believe that. And by the way, I know that one of the things that was bizarre to me is that, so the footage, the depositions of you and Doug, that was occurring when you were basically suing him over the trust stuff, right?
Right.
And my understanding is, I don't think you mind talking about this at all. My understanding is that you believe that Douglas did improper things regarding the trust, right?
Yes.
And if I were to ask you on a scale of 1 to 100, with 1 being, I'm not really sure, and 100 being, I'm absolutely positively certain he did illegal things with the trust, what would you tell me?
I'd say that's the right answer.
Between 1 and 100, how sure?
100.
100, right? Okay. And in addition, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I think one of the reasons that you, and it's fair to say you pretty much hate Douglas, right?
That would be fair.
Okay. By the way, one of the things that I always worried about, or I thought about when you have an incredible sense of humor. And do you know what I'm especially referring to? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what you're. I mean, I have a very dry sense of
Okay.
humor. but
So-
I have a sense of humor.
All right, you made, do you remember the Durst Obesity Clinic?
Yes.
I have that. I've seen it. Now, I would like to say that I am not a fat guy. But if I were to say that, let's face it, that would be a lie. So my concern is tell me when you leave. I'm hoping I will not be the Lewin Obesity Clinic cartoon. I always thought, when Bob sees me, I'm gonna end up in one of his little cartoons that he made up. Is that gonna happen or probably not?
No, I mean, there's lots of people in here that when it comes to obesity are obese and you're not.
Oh, you know what? That is when I get back, my wife and I have had this argument. My wife's in really good shape, much better shape than I am. And she has said that I'm pushing obese technically. So I'm gonna tell her that you
certainly don't see obese.
Well, hey, listen, I'll take it. But so Douglas, one of the things that you tell me if I'm right about this, I think one of the reasons that you hate Douglas is that Douglas, in your mind, is a phony.
Douglas beat me up.
But going back when you were a kid. But I'm even saying,
Broadly speaking, Douglas beat me up.
do you mean physically or do you mean?
I don't mean physically. I mean beat me up. My wife said it in the Jinx.
Yeah.
When she was on the phone and they had those recorded messages, she said Douglas wanted to steal your birthright, take over the company, steal your money, such and such and such and such, and he's done it. And she's right. Douglas wanted to take my birthright,
and he got it.
Wanted to run the company, he wanted to take my money, and he did those things.
You know what's interesting though, Bob? Unless I'm wrong, I don't think you ever wanted that life.
No, I didn't.
But it doesn't, I don't think you wanted it, but I think it made you very angry that tell me if I'm wrong, I think that you would have very easily let him, he wanted to run it, he wanted to do that. If he would have let you have your position and not kind of humiliated you, you would have been willing to kind of let him run it, right?
Absolutely.
And I think the other thing that at least I sense about Douglas that bothers you is that you don't consider Douglas to be I think you think Douglas is a phony. So for instance, when Douglas gets his awards and he's the man about town and he's Mr. Environment, etc. And you tell me if I'm wrong, I bet you watch and you go, that's not Douglas. Am I right?
To some extent. I mean, I wouldn't watch it.
Well, let me go another way. When Kathy disappeared, Douglas has said that he knows nothing about anything that happened after Kathy disappeared.
Well, that would not be true.
And he and your dad were coordinating the meetings with Ed Wright and Scapetta, right?
Yes.
What's interesting, we all knew you were going to flee at some point. And I mean I assume that you're not denying that you were in the process of fleeing.
I'm not denying I was in the process.
Right. And I think the reason you're not doing it is it's obvious, there's nothing you do it. Here's what I understand though. If you've known, my understanding is you were waiting, so when were you going to be leaving? So we got you today, so let me go another way. Why are you still here? How come you're not in Cuba? How come you weren't in Cuba 3 months ago or a year ago? I don't get it.
Well, we got to step back.
Okay.
I had no idea that I was going to need to flee. I had made arrangements, I had considered the possibility, I had looked here and looked there, but I had never really said, you know what, they're gonna come after me, I've gotta get far away where they can't get me, and I've gotta do this, this, and this, and go over there. I never got that. I liked living in Houston.
But didn't you do that? So after the last interview with Mark and Andrew, do you remember what you did right after that interview? The last interview? Right afterwards? Do you remember or no? Where you went?
The last interview, you know, the interviews took place over a 3-day weekend.
They did, but remember, then there's the interview after that, a year and a half later, when they end up showing you the letter that the envelope that you now know they got from Syrup.
Yeah.
So that was a year and a half later. So I understand after the original interviews, I understand why you weren't really thinking anything was that bad. But how come that was 2012 and you saw the envelopes? How come you didn't leave then? It's mind-boggling to me.
Why didn't I leave then?
Yeah.
I guess inertia. I just didn't really think that I was going to end up arrested.
So so far, there's been nothing that's aired on the Jinx that you weren't aware of, right? Other than, let me back up. You did not know that envelope had come from Syrup, right? Does that make sense?
Well, I knew that my handwriting was my handwriting, and I knew I had written a whole bunch of letters to Susan.
Right.
And I, if not knew, certainly assumed or expected that, because Susan always saved everything, that they were
Right.
there somewhere.
Right, but I'm sure you probably thought that the police had all of them, and it turned out that Sarah had one of them. You know, which is an interesting thing too.
Seemed to me the police had them and then
Right.
didn't appreciate what was there.
Right. So you're thinking if the police haven't done anything all these years, you're thinking it's probably okay.
And it was the same thing 1 week later, and the next week later, and the next week later. And I've been doing this medical stuff since 2007. Thinking I'm going to run away. My doctors are here. I mean, I was living in Los Angeles for 4 years.
Right, but then you just, all of a sudden, you sold everything, and we thought that's because you were worried about us. Is that right?
That was because I was getting sicker, and I had to choose a place where I was going to go into the hospital and be operated on.
So is your
I preferred Houston Medical Center
to
to the doctors I'd met in Los Angeles.
Okay, so here's the other thing I don't get. You started moving, so after, between Susan's death and Morris's death, you ended up getting a bunch of money, you know, you took it out, you had it in the car, etc. And then you got caught in Pennsylvania. But by the way, can you tell me, I always joke, Bob, because I'm Jewish as well, and you're Jewish, you did not help our people's reputation by shoplifting the $7 sandwich. Our people get enough grief. That did not help our reputation. So can you tell me why, with all your money, what made you do that?
Well, in the interviews, Detective Cody Cazales says he wanted to get caught. And I look back at that thing, and maybe I wanted to get caught. I certainly can't explain it any other way. Being a fugitive was not something I did well.
Right.
When I was in prison, none of the inmates could understand that at all. I mean, you have lots of money. Why'd you get caught? If
Right.
I had lots of money, I'd never get caught. But I got caught with lots of money. I can't explain it. I can't explain it to you.
Right.
Couldn't explain it to the inmates. I mean, it was just ridiculous. that's one of the few things that Cody Gonzalez says that I can sort of say, well, maybe that's what it was. I hated being a fugitive. I would walk down the street and turn around and start looking over my shoulder. You know, I was the worst fugitive the world has ever met.
You would when you would talk about, you know, there's a couple of expressions that you use that that are just, you'll say during your interviews, you'll always, no matter what's going on, the end of them is always, I just wanted to go to bed. You're talking about whatever incident, you'll go, something, you go, okay, when Kathy wasn't going to come back, the terrace incident with Ann and I think it's Kevin and Ann who lived at the Doyles next door. Do you remember that incident? Yeah, and you were asked about it and all, you know, they're showing you the commentary and you're going, and you're admitting it. Yeah, we had a fight and it was raining outside and you're not denying anything. And then they're asking you about it and you're going, I just wanted to go to bed. You always use that expression. You also always say, like you're asking about, and I can't do you as good as you can do you, obviously, but you'll say something like about, you know, your wig. You know, so I've grown a beard in the past. I mean, but I can't grow one overnight. And I decided, you know, clean, close shave, a wig,
Small guy.
small guy. Yeah, I'm looking pretty good. You'll say pretty good. So I'm always, it's interesting to me because I look at some of the stuff that you did, and as bright as you are, perfect example. I don't think you're gonna have a problem talking about this. You told Mike Struck that you had drinks with the mayors, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you know they're gonna come back and ask? I don't get that one. Explain that.
Monday morning quarterbacking. I told him I had drinks with the mayors. And the fact that obviously he's going to go right over and say to the mayors, he says he had drinks with you. You had drinks with him? They're going to say no, of course.
So you know what you said, and this. Do you remember what you told Mark and Andrew about why you made that up? Do you remember what you told them, or no?
Leave me alone.
Yeah, this you said. This is what you said. You said, who knew that the police would do oodles of investigation and I would look for motive, and I wasn't used to somebody questioning my veracity. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah.
Hey, so do I do a pretty decent you? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been. It's very funny because for me, working on this case for 2 years, even though I've never met you, it's a very weird, probably a weird feeling for you, because I feel like I know you extremely well, but I've never met you. And you're probably sitting over here going, that's kind of creepy. This guy seems to know a lot of it. Is it a little uncomfortable for you?
You've taken the time out and done all this stuff.
Listen, I've really tried to get to know you, and I've tried to understand. So I want to go back for a second so for Kathy, were you surprised? What did you think of the original investigation by Detective Struck?
See, I thought Detective Struck did a pretty reasonable job under the circumstances. The way the interviews come out makes him look like a nitwit, but I just don't think it was like that. I think that was what he said. He has no body, he has no crime scene, it's a missing person. What do you want me to do?
Well, you know what I didn't get? So here's the thing. By your own admission, you're the last person to see her before she gets on the train. I mean, that's no secret. You've said that over and over, right?
Right.
And you say she gets on the train, but you would agree that the only evidence of her getting on the train is you, right?
Right.
So what I didn't understand is once you know that Bob is lying, and he knew, he interviewed, I mean, you might not know this. Did you know that he interviewed...
Who he?
Oh, Struck they knew about Mayor a week.
Right away.
Yeah.
They would have had to know right away.
Yeah. So here, why didn't they search? They should have gone to the house on Hoyt, and they should have searched it.
You see, they did search it.
15, 20 years later.
No, and Mike struck people. You were talking about a little house,
Right.
and Janine Pirro had them in a lake and all this stuff. The house was very small. In terms of searching the house, it's 1,100 feet, 800 feet upstairs. This is the old house. It's been demolished, and they built 300 feet downstairs. They walked into all the rooms. They looked everywhere. That crawl space.
Wait, you're talking about the state troopers, right? The Connecticut state troopers.
Whoever they, it wasn't Connecticut, it was New York.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't mean Connecticut. Yeah, the New York State Troopers. And they're doing that. How soon after the murder? How soon after her disappearance were they doing the search of that they came over? Do you remember? God,
Yeah, I was trying to catch
yeah,
them.
trust me, I'll get him.
The day after I reported it on a Thursday. The day after was Friday.
Right.
And they went into the house and they looked everywhere. There wasn't much to look at. They all show that downstairs door going out to the crawl space. There was no basement in the house. So what you had underneath the living room and the bedroom was about 2.5 feet high.
Right. Wait a minute, but so you report it to the 20th precinct on Friday. I know.
I called Thursday.
Thursday, right, and you said, and they told you had to wait.
They said we don't want to hear about
Right.
it. In essence, they didn't use those words, but they said you guys must have had a spat. It's just been 4 or 5 days.
Right.
They sounded like my father and my brother. Nothing's going to come of this. We need some kind of evidence that something's happened to her, rather than what you're telling us is that she's split.
Right, but let me go back. How was it that the troopers came to the house? You didn't call them. It was Gilberta, right?
Gilberta contacted them Friday morning after I had told everybody that I hadn't seen her since the following Sunday, and I went into the precinct where Mike Strook was Friday afternoon.
So when you came in, you had that couple-year-old New York magazine that has your dad, the 5. So I was trying to figure out. Tell me if I'm wrong. It was 2 years old when you brought it in. You know the magazine cover I'm talking about, right? It says your dad on the cover. What made you bring that in? It's a weird thing to have. It's 2 years old. Or can I tell you what I think? You
can definitely tell me what you think.
Well, I'd rather hear what you think. Go ahead. Tell me why you brought it in.
Why did I bring that in? I had a.
Go ahead.
In the business, we kept old newspaper stories about us, and that's just jumped up at me.
Well, so to me, I think you kind of brought that in because you were kind of showing them, hey, I'm an important person.
Yes.
Okay. And so you go in there, and what was strange to me was, and I don't know if you remember this, you called from South Salem. You called Anne or Mary, I can't remember which, or both. I think you called Gilberta. You called some of Kathy's friends and family to find out if they'd seen her, right? Did you remember that?
Sure.
But what was strange was, before you called them to check where she was, you actually called the police. You had already called and the number for the police. So it was weird to me, how come you didn't call them first before you called the police? Do you understand what I mean, or no?
I was not looking forward to talking to them at all.
Okay.
I was calling the police to report Kathy missing. And if when I called, they said, sure, come on in tomorrow and you'll report a missing person, I don't think I would have called her family or Gilbert at all.
Right, but it would seem to me that if you're gonna, if you think Kathy's okay, if you're trying to figure out what's wrong with her, the first thing you do is you'd call her family and you'd go, hey, have you seen Kathy? It's just a weird, do you see what seems strange about calling the police first?
First I should call her family and friends.
Right.
Before calling the police.
So tell me, why the police first? That one I didn't understand.
Because I didn't feel like talking to her family and friends.
Okay. Everything okay?
Oh yeah, that's the chief of police.
Oh, okay. So you go and you end up reporting her missing on that Friday. You knew that Kathy was going to start a new rotation on Monday. She was going to be doing that. It's an acute. I think it was an acute pediatric ICU rotation.
Something like that.
And you were aware that if Kathy couldn't come in or wasn't available, you didn't know specifically where she was doing the rotation, right? You didn't have the name of the doctor and the place she was going to be doing it, right? You didn't know.
There was a neurologist who was very close to Kathy. I always felt too close to Kathy, and they had numerous phone calls.
Do you remember who that was? Do you remember his name?
I can recall it. I can't recall it right now, but I could definitely recall because they had repeated telephone conversations.
Was this a student or?
No, this was the head of the neurology department.
Oh, wait, neurology or urology?
What's the difference? NEU?
Yeah, no, neurology is going to be somebody who's dealing with nerves in the brain. Urology is generally going to be
excuse me, definitely neurology.
Neurology, okay.
And her and he and Kathy had become quite close.
Right.
And that is what I believe she was doing.
So you thought she was going to do the neurology clerkship that way?
Right.
So let me ask you, if Kathy wasn't going to come in to, let's say she was unavailable, she was sick, etc. What you would have known is that she would need to call, the dean's office to say, hey, I can't come in, right?
She would need to call somebody.
Do you know who she would call? Do you have any idea?
No.
But at least you knew.
I knew the neurologist's phone number. I knew that she was spending a lot of time with the man, and I had either deduced or been told, whatever, that's what she was doing.
It's not Dr. Cook, is it? Was it an African American
No.
guy? Okay. So you know that Dean Cooperman gets a call on Monday morning, supposedly. You're aware of that, right? What is that?
I don't know, something above us, but go ahead.
You know about the call to the dean, right? So I went back and I talked to him. And what the dean said that basically he had only talked to Kathy maybe 10 minutes the whole time she'd been there.
Oh, that's not true. I don't think that's true.
And he said the only reason that he thought it was Kathy that called him was because the person that called on the phone said it's Kathy. But what's interesting is that if Kathy were going to be calling to say she wasn't coming in, Kathy would have called the rotation where she was going to be. Does that make sense?
I guess. I mean, I have no idea how that stuff works. I mean,
So
there was the hospital and there
Right.
was the medical school.
Right.
And certain things the hospital was doing,
Right.
and certain things the medical.
right, you wouldn't have known, hey, she needs to call Dr. Smith at
No,
right.
I wouldn't have known.
But you would have known, hey, she could always call the dean of the medical school, right? You would know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he gets this call, and by the way, that call was a big problem for New York because they're going, wait, if Kathy is dead, how can she be calling? I don't think Kathy called. I know. Do you know who I think? And I'm not asking you what happened, but do you know who I think called? Any guesses?
The movie and Andrew was under the opinion it was Susan Berman.
Yeah, and I wanna ask you something. And again, we're not talking about what actually happened, but let's say you would have come to Susan, okay?
She would have said no.
She would have said no?
She would not have risked her life for something like that.
Well, wait, before you, let me just ask you though. So I want to change a little bit. Let's say that you came to Susan and you said, you know what? Kathy and I got into an argument, and she accidentally hit her head, and oh my God, I don't know what to do. You said Susan was your best friend, right? I mean, yeah? No?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Susan was probably closer to me. The 2 years of my life, Kathy was my best friend.
Right.
But other than that, Susan was my best friend.
And Susan was a very loyal person, would you agree?
Absolutely.
So, do you think that if you would have come to Susan, I'm not saying you did this, but if you would have come to Susan and said, you know what? Oh my God, I got in an argument with Kathy, she was furious at me, she hit her head, she died, I panicked, there's nothing I can do. Can you please call the dean? Do you think she would have done that?
I don't think she would have done it, but maybe she would have done it. But in the All Good Things movie, they interview lots of people before it and after it, and one of the people they interview is a reporter named Steve Silverman.
Yep, I know Steve Silverman.
Okay.
People magazine. I think he was in charge of people.com at one point.
Oh, good for him.
And you knew him. He and Susie were roommates at one point.
Yeah, I remember when Susie introduced me to Steve Silverman. I was very impressed with Steve Silverman because he and Susie were both unemployed at that time.
Right.
And Susie was talking about getting a job. And Steve Silverman says, now listen, we are not looking for jobs. We are looking for positions. And that impressed me. In the All Good Things, when they interview Steve Silverman, he says that Susan Berman is the last person you would want to confess a murder to.
Right. You know, it's funny though, when almost everybody I've talked to, Linda Obst, you know Linda Obst,
I met her once or twice.
the people closest to Susan, everybody says, even Sarah, that if in that situation, maybe a little bit because of her dad, the whole, mafia thing, that they think that she would have done anything for you.
Damn close.
So I want to, and I'm going to just ask this straight out. If you had killed Kathy, would you tell me?
No.
Okay. You know what? If you had killed Susan, would you tell me?
No.
All right. You know what, Bob? That is a very honest. It's a very honest answer. As we're talking, are you okay? Is there something?
Okay, something's...
Hey, let me help you. What do you need?
I'm just trying to pull this orange thing
Like
up
this?
over these things.
Oh, you want this up? Like this, and you want this down? Oh, I got it. You want this, what?
There we go.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, so, all right, so listen, I appreciate you being honest about that. Is it fair to say that between Morris, Kathy, and Susan, at the time that they died, the person that you cared the most about was Susan? Is that a fair statement? I mean, that's not.
Just that Kathy and Susan are so much earlier than Morris. I mean, Morris came into my life much later than Kathy and Susan.
Well, Morris was a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, sort of.
I guess what I mean by that is that by the time Kathy disappeared, you didn't feel the same way about her that you did before, right? I mean...
Oh, no. I mean, Gilberta has it right in her quote when she first met us. We were in love.
Right.
Period. No two ways about it. We were in love. That lasted about 2 years.
Right.
And then we had the thing with the abortion.
Right.
And that was the end of it.
And Bob, you had a great quote that I thought maybe one of my favorite quotes in the whole interview is you're talking about what happened in you and Kathy. And the thing that described your relationship best to me is you said basically when you first met, you guys would go out to dinner. And you'd tell her, I'm gonna order this, why don't you order this, and we'll kind of share. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And you said at the end, Kathy be like, you get what you want, I'll get what I want, and leave my food alone. Yeah?
Well, that was very descriptive of the relationship. In the beginning, we shared everything, and towards the end, we stopped sharing anything.
Well, I mean, you had talked about, you refer to yourself as kind of the dominant one.
I was the dominant person in the marriage.
And part of it was that she was really young when you met her. You know, I think you married when 19.
I had the money, I was 9 years old,
Right.
I had the education. I was calling the shots, as Kathy would say.
Was it hard? So as she got older, more confident, and a little bit, do you feel like she kind of, I mean, I think she kind of got tired of some of the bullshit. I mean, you know, she got tired of...
Absolutely.
And you have said, you know, one of the things, again, that nobody admits, Bob, except for you. They just don't. You have a quote where you say, I was very, 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 very controlling.
All that was true.
And Kathy got tired of it. And then you had, you know, you were having affairs, right?
And she was.
I think that one of your affairs was different than the others. Do you know which one I think was different?
Prudence Farrow is what everybody looks towards.
Is that accurate or no?
No, I was closer to Prudence than I was to anybody else that I slept with. I mean, Prudence and I spent time together. My other affairs were 1-2 nights,
Right.
in the end. And Kathy knew and hated the fact that I was seeing Prudence Farrow.
Yeah, you know what's ironic, Bob, and to me, is that despite the issues, I think Kathy loved you even at the end. I mean, she wanted a divorce, but I think, you know, you had a lot of money. Do you think that's what Kathy was after?
No, but Kathy felt like somebody, I don't know whom, I would guess Gilberta, told Kathy that if she could prove that I'd been beating her up, she would get a bigger settlement.
Right.
So Kathy started doing these things to start fights, and she would walk around rubbing this and then go tell her friend, look what he did to me and stuff like that.
Well, what,
She didn't want me to win. Maybe she accepted that I was going to get a divorce if I wanted to get a divorce, but she didn't want it to look like I came away the winner. So she had to get a lot of money.
you know what? Is it fair to say, though, you also didn't want her to be the winner, right? Is that fair or no? Because she was only asking for
Oh,
200.
come on, she wasn't asking for 200,000. She didn't even have a real lawyer at the time. I mean, I don't know what her. She had
What?
2 lawyers that she went through in less than
Well,
about a year.
hold on a minute. Dale Regis said that the Thursday before, you guys had rejected a $250,000 settlement. Are you saying that that's not true?
Not true.
Okay. Now on that, would you, if that were true, would you tell me? You would.
I'm going to tell you that.
Okay.
That we never got discussions.
Wait, I just want to go back. I asked you before, I asked you a few minutes ago, I said, hey, if you had killed Kathy, would you tell me? And you said,
No.
no. I said, I asked you if you killed Susan, would you tell me? You said no. So I'm asking you right now, if there had been an agreement for there to have been a $250,000, agreement, would you tell me?
I would tell you.
Okay.
I would have paid it.
Yeah, and, okay, I'm going to tell you, Bob, I believe you when you tell me that. I think you're being truthful about that.
How could I reject $250,000? That would be ridiculous. If it ever got into court, she was going to get a lot more than $250,000.
What did you think? What did you think she was going to get? Because I didn't think you had that much money
She
at
couldn't
that.
get the trust
Okay.
because the trust excluded that kind of a problem. If somebody had gotten a judgment against me, the trust would prevent them from collecting it.
How much was the trust giving you? You're getting about $3 million a year. Is that right at that point?
Something like that.
And was that the only? So you're getting, that's what you can live on, but you didn't have.
$3 million. I'm not like that. I'm not fancy.
Hey, what's wrong with me? What's Mayor's? Bill Mayer. Bill Mayer said one of the funniest things he said was that he said one day he looks over and there you are fixing your roof, or fixing the roof on the shed.
And that's the kind of thing I like doing. That's why I was not good in the business. I liked tinkering and doing little things. I didn't like things for big money. Kathy never went to court. She never filed what you filed to get divorced. Because she didn't want to get divorced.
Wait. So tell me about that. So you think? So your view in the end is she didn't want to get divorced, right?
No, I don't think she ever wanted to get divorced.
And at the end, I actually think you wanted a divorce.
At the end, it had just gotten to be one big fight. I just wanted I wanted to go our separate ways. Call it a divorce or a separation,
Right.
whatever you want. I just didn't want to keep doing this.
And at that point in time, too, is it fair to say that you had fallen in love with Prudence?
Yes.
And Prudence has said that very near the time of Kathy's death, that she had told you that because you were married, that that was a problem for her. Did you remember that?
Yeah, we had that discussion. She was married too.
Right, but you had, and she had told you that you needed to be divorced. Let me just, I'm looking. Some things I remember, Bob, and some stuff, it's a lot to keep track
When we
of.
met, we were both married.
Right.
When we stopped seeing one another, we were both married.
So, I'm looking right here. I got it. I just gotta find. Okay. So Prudence ends up saying that well, she told you. Remember who Harry Brown was? Harry Brown was a guy she dated. He was an older guy. He's older than you are.
Her husband was that guy, something Brun. Prudence, we're talking about.
Right, correct. Harry Brown dated her after,
I remember she had an old man boyfriend when I first met her.
so they dated in 1983. By the way, the building that she was living in, was that one of your buildings? One of your family buildings? It was confusing to me.
When I met her, she was living in her mother's apartment on Central Park West.
Okay,
I rented her the apartment on 43rd Street,
okay.
and that was one of our buildings.
So, Prudence told Harry that you had told her, and Prudence has said that you had said that you guys got into it because she had concerns, Prudence did, about you being married. And you've said, yeah, that's true, right?
Yes.
And then you told her it's not a problem, she won't be around much longer.
Oh, I don't not tell Prudence
No.
anything like that.
Okay. And I got a question. If you had said that, would you tell me? Or no?
If I had told Prudence, oh, don't worry about Kathy, she'll be gone soon, I would tell you, and I did not.
Okay, so in fact, the quote was that she won't be around much longer, she'd be completely gone, out of the picture within a week. So you're saying you did not say
I
that?
did not say that.
And again, if you had said that, you would agree that...
I would tell you. I
Okay.
did not tell Prudence anything like
Okay.
that.
Did you call Prudence? So it's also, she told the police that either the Saturday before Kathy was last seen or the Monday or Tuesday afterwards, that that basically you got a call. So she got a call from you, excuse me, after Kathy's disappearance. And that call, you told her that apparently it was from a payphone, and you said you won't be hearing from me for a while. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So
That
tell
was with Peter, whatever the guy's name is, who said that I kicked him in the head. Can't remember his
Peter
name.
Schwartz.
That's
Wait,
it.
what do you mean it was with Peter? I lost you on that.
Oh. He, and I think, yes, he and Kathy had gone to the police precinct to tell them that I had assaulted Peter Schwartz and kicked him in the head while he was sitting in our apartment drinking tea. I don't think I kicked him in the head. I think he was selling coke to Kathy.
Okay.
I got back at 2 o'clock Saturday night, grabbed hold of him, and the two of us fell down, and he hit his head on the corner of the desk.
Well, do you remember Ellen Tradesman?
Oh,
Kathy's friend Ellen Tradesman?
yes.
So,
Surprised that she wasn't in any of this.
well, Ellen was there, and Ellen said that you
Kathy.
had, that you had a fact, Bob, all...
Kathy, not Ellen.
Well, not Ellen, thank you, Kathy, thank you. Let me show you.
So you saying you never kicked Peter Schwartz in the eye? You didn't kick Peter Schwartz in there?
I did not kick him in the head.
And we went back to the apartment, and they were there, and, just kind of not doing anything bad, but they were just, there talking or whatever, and he was on the floor. My recollection is he was on the floor, resting on his elbow, and Bob came in and kicked him in the face. And, I guess, it gets hazy after that, because I think we left, and he went to the emergency room. Peter went to the emergency room, and he had a cracked bone or broken bone in his face, and he was injured. But, so it was the first time that I had ever seen any violence from Bob. But it was scary. It was probably the first time I ever saw violence from anyone close to me like that. So it was alarming.
Is Kathy Tradesman saying that she was there when
Yes.
Peter and I had the
She
fight?
is, yeah, she is. In fact, and I've got, let me show you, when you look at Peter,
You're saying you don't think she was there? Are you saying she was not there?
No, she wasn't there. It was just
well,
Peter and his wife and his wife's girlfriend, his wife's friend, and Kathy and me. There was nobody else there.
Well, so, you know, that's the injury that he had. Does that make, do you remember that or no?
I remember that he had this thing on his head, and he and Kathy went to the police precinct.
Did you think there was something going on between he and Kathy?
No, I didn't really know him that well. I mean, he was married,
Right.
A photographer,
Right.
and I never thought that he and Kathy were having an affair.
So when
or slept together or anything like that.
at
Can I
that
ask him something real quick?
Sure.
Did you go out to a club that night?
Yes.
Where'd you go? Do you remember what
I
club?
went to Xenon and then Club 50, Studio 54.
How about the Copacabana? Did you go to that club too? Copacabana? Did you go to that club that night?
I don't even like Copacabana sounds like something from when I was a little kid.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You didn't go to that
Before
club?
my time was Copacabana.
Okay.
Not before Mike's time, though.
No. Well,
So when Kathy, at this point in the marriage, when Kathy was having her affair, whatever it was, did that really bother you?
Yeah,
Okay.
bothered me.
But you at the end of the marriage, at this point in time, you're saying Kathy didn't want a divorce, and you did. You wanted her gone. Is that fair? In terms of you wanted her out of the house,
She never wanted a divorce.
right?
But she somehow had this idea that she could come on to people in front of me, and that I would just keep putting up with it. And I did put up with it for a little bit, and then it got to be too much. Did you speak to my friends, either Nick Chavin or Doug Oliver?
No. Do you know why I didn't speak to him? Any guesses? I didn't. Do you know why I didn't speak to him?
No. They refused to?
No. Think about it. If I would have talked to either one of them, what's the first thing they would have done?
Call me.
They would have called you, and I didn't want you to know.
Okay.
So you knew? You knew that that the New York State investigators were going back and looking at your case again recently, right?
Recently, we're talking about now?
Yeah, in the last 6 months. Did you know that?
Yes.
So you know who they were doing that for? Any guesses?
I'm assuming it was Andrew.
No, they were doing it for me.
Ah.
So I didn't want you to know that we were looking at this case. You know, because I noticed it was very funny, interesting. When all the interviews of Mark and Andrew, there was one person that you seemed the least comfortable talking about. Do you know who that was?
Soon, Kathy.
Susan.
Susan, oh, yeah.
Yeah. You would talk about Kathy, you would talk about Morris, but you didn't want to talk about Kathy. And I was concerned that if you found out that I was looking at this case,
Yeah, I would have backed off, gone to Cuba, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Who knows where I
and I don't know if you would have, we weren't sure, would he even come back? I think you would have waited and then, and maybe, seen what happened, but we were afraid we were going to lose you. So, which kind of brings back, when were you planning on, so you said you were going to flee, so back to what I said before, how come you are still here?
I kept putting it off. I kept making plans and making arrangements, and then just inertia.
Right.
To actually leave where I'm living and go someplace else. And, I mean, I've done this before.
No, so what made you, so it looks like you disappeared this week, you basically left your car. What was it that made you start to run this week? I mean, all the times, what was it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why this week as opposed to last week, or
Right.
3 weeks ago, or 2 months ago. Why just right now that I decide, now I got to do this?
You're not sure?
I'm really not very, very sure.
Well, so you've been taking all kinds of money out.
I've been always withdrawing cash.
Right.
I use cash instead of credit cards.
Oh, no.
And also, I mean, cash is what I could buy things for. I mean, you know I was arrested with a revolver.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't walk into a gun store and buy a revolver,
Right.
obviously. Same thing with the car and the license. I paid for it.
So where'd you get the latest gun?
For what?
So that you had a gun with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know about the revolver.
I do. So where did that one come from? Where'd you find that one?
A guy.
Oh, a guy. Okay. So you know how to find a gun that's not
We're
traceable,
inmates, so people on the street trust me.
right?
And I trust them.
So I wanna go back a little bit. So when Janine Pirro, I know that the stuff came out and you end up leaving, and a big thing was that most people, if they found out that their wife's case was being reinvestigated, they would be, wow, I'm so glad somebody's really looking at it. What made you run?
See, I really can't say why did I run when I did, as opposed to 3 days, 2 weeks, 4 months.
No. I'm asking you just period. I'm going back to October 31st, 2000, when you found out from Morty Matz or from Wendy that they had reopened Kathy's case, and your response to that was to leave. You got to Galveston, I think, on November 11th. You stopped using your cell phone. I gotta ask, what made you agree to let Mark and Andrew see all of your stuff with your lawyers and your, all the stuff with Susie Giordano that you said they could look at? Why did you give them that stuff? I don't understand. That just boggles my mind.
I was trying to be. I just figured in the way they made all good things, it made me it made me a sympathetic person, as opposed to a super aggressive person, which is pretty much correct. And I wanted them to see the whole thing, and that they would see me as an acceptable human being, as opposed to all this other stuff, and that I couldn't get them to see me as an acceptable human being if I was covering things up.
So you knew. So you basically told Susan, give them anything they want. Your lawyer stuff.
Yeah. Told Sarah the same thing.
Bob, and I absolutely believe it's very interesting. When you saw, so all good things, you agree, presents you as somebody who's responsible for 3 murders, right?
Right.
Plus something else that really bothered you. What was the thing that bothered you most about all good things? And you said it to Andrew. Do you remember?
Killing all the dogs.
Okay. So, but by the way, are you a dog person, right?
Yes.
I have a dog. I'm very much into my dog. If you go into my, it's very funny. Well, it's not funny, but believe it or not, in me working on this case, I have young kids, and my daughter was afraid. She said, "Hey, is he going to hurt us?" I said, "No, he's not going to hurt you." And then she said, "Is there any way that he's going to hurt our dog?" And I said, "You know what? There's one thing about Bob that I'm very confident of. Bob loves dogs. Bob would never hurt a dog."
Oh, you're right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You like dogs, I think, much more than people. Is that right?
Yes.
So this is so by the way, when you're, this is my guy. I gotta find, so I gotta, can't really tell. That's my Great Dane.
Doesn't look that great there.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So, you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm gonna show you a better picture where you can see him. He's my boy. He is a. All right, you have a better picture here. Here we go.
That's a big,
170 pounds, that's my basset
it's
hound.
170 pounds.
170 pounds. He is my, you know where he sleeps?
I can't, anywhere you want.
You know it's true. Now you can get an idea. There's his giant head. He sleeps in bed with me. And I told my daughter, listen, Bob is somebody who, Bob doesn't kill because he enjoys killing.
That's what Cody Gonzalez says. But if you back him into a corner, he'll kill you.
Well, I think that, I will tell you, I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think you planned I don't think you planned out the killing of Kathy. I think that happened and you were stuck with it. I do think you planned out Susan, and I think you planned out Morris, but I think what happened with Susan is, Susan told you that the police had contacted her, remember?
Yep.
And she told you, do you remember, who did she tell you contacted her? I mean, you told this to Mark and Andrew.
Susan told me that she'd been contacted by Los Angeles detectives and New York detectives, and they want to come talk to me.
And if I asked you on a scale of 1 to 100, with 1 being I'm not sure she said it and 100 being I'm positive, you would say
Said what?
that Susan told you that.
Yes.
100, right?
Susan definitely told me
Okay.
that she'd been contacted by
I'm gonna tell you something. That wasn't true. They had not contacted her. They were planning on contacting her. They had never contacted her. Oh, you know what? That might have come out in the. Did you knew that before I just said it right now because it came out in the show, right? Has that already come out or no? I can't remember what's out in the show. Did you know what I just told you or no? Is that a new piece?
No, I did not know
Yeah.
that they had not contacted
No,
her.
they had not they were planning on it. So I'm trying to figure out, why would Susan tell you that if it hadn't happened? I mean, any idea?
If the detectives had not called her,
They had.
then I do believe she was told by the reporters that the detectives are going to interview her.
She had not been at that time. There's not a reporter that had contacted her, and no reporter knew what the police were doing. So what I'm telling you is, Susan lied to you about that. So I know it's not true. You just said Susan told me that the LA police had contacted her.
I think she used the word detective.
Yeah, LA detectives.
I was never
right.
sure whether it was the LA or the New
Yeah,
York or
right.
both.
But I'm telling you, did not happen. So I had to figure out, why would Susan tell you that? Do you know what I think? Any guess?
I can't guess.
I think that Susan was trying to subtly squeeze you for money. By the way, for what it's worth, Bob, because I know you cared about her, I don't think Susan ever would have said anything.
I don't think so either.
She never would have. She never would have told anybody anything.
She never would have brought up anything like that. And yes, she was always telling me about her money problems, but she never, quote unquote, squeezed me for it. Bobby, if you don't give me enough money to do such and such, I'm going to do such and such. I never heard anything like that from Susan.
No, and I'll tell you why I don't think you did. Susan was very smart. You would agree, right?
And she knew I would give her money.
But you know what had happened, Bob? You know, throughout the summer before she died, the last time you sent her money before November, in November you've said you sent her $50,000, correct?
2 checks.
Yeah, for $25,000
apiece.
And that was in November, right?
I honestly don't remember exactly when it was, but it was 2 checks separated by about 3-4 weeks,
Okay.
each for $25,000.
And you know that we have, we have the envelope that you were shown by Mark and Andrew. That's one of the checks, right?
Right.
And the letter. You like green pen. Why do you like green pen?
I liked it. It was different. People recognized, oh, it's Bob's handwriting. That was when the faxes first came in, and you couldn't tell the original
Right.
from the copy. So they were insisting that you sign documents in blue rather than black.
Right.
I was going to do it in green,
Green.
to be different. Everybody ridiculed it, but you know, that's
One
what I did.
of my favorite quotes, again, that you had with Mark and Andrew, which you would say, they would ask, most people try to say how hard they work, and you would say, I would show up at noon wearing a jock strap, high, and tell them the waste of a day is to do blah blah blah, and then you said, I would lord it over them, that I didn't have to do that because
I wasn't, trying to make money.
well, no, you'd say because I was me. Is it fair to say that kind of in your life that you have kind of lived by your own rules?
Well, sort of. It's just that when I was in Vermont, we were all hippies, and I would wear what I wanted to wear. I didn't have to wear a suit and a white shirt
Right.
and a tie with polished shoes. I
Right.
didn't have to do any of that stuff. I could dress any way I wanted, and it was A-OK. Working in the family business in New York City, a whole bunch of lawyers and other executives dressing in the uniform that you dress in, it just wouldn't work for me not doing it, even though I am me.
Well, but you said that you said you would show up doing what you want, and what was interesting to me is you would say, I would lord it over them.
Yeah.
So I think you enjoyed basically kind of telling everybody, hey, I'm Bob Durst, I'll play by my own rules.
Right.
There's another quote that is amazing to me. I absolutely, it's hard for me to even imagine, but you'll talk about how the rule basically how the rules do not apply. You talk about Vista. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And you'll say there's a quote with Mark and Andrew that you talk about getting food stamps. And you know why you said you did it?
I did it.
No, but why? Well, you had more money. You didn't need it.
Oh, why did I say I did it?
Well, why'd you do it?
The only thing I can think of now is why not?
You were right. You said you enjoyed beating the government.
Yes.
You also talk about being in an airport and just taking water, a thing of water, and you're like, I wasn't gonna wait in line. I mean, they're asking $3 for a thing of
It
water.
was the waiting in line. I'm at the airport now,
Right.
and it's 20 feet to the cashier.
Right.
Fuck it, I'm gonna take the water and leave.
Do you think, Bob? Do you think that if you'd have been raised in a different, so you would agree that that's, so for instance, all of us,
I mean, I shoplifted since I was a little kid,
right,
so it was nothing
right.
new or.
But I mean, the reason that people don't, we're taught, hey, you can't steal, or you have to follow this rule.
I didn't have to follow the rule.
Yeah, and
Here's the line, you get at the end of the line. I'm thinking, I'm not gonna get at the end of the line, I've got other things I wanna do.
Now, so do you think that the way you were raised, your family, the money, is that what kind of created that part of you?
Well, my siblings are not like that.
So another thing that I gotta say, the whole Asperger's thing.
I never thought that amounted to anything. That was the psychiatrist coming up with an explanation, and it was never necessary at the trial. We didn't need the psychiatrist.
Right, but Bob, you agree that was a load of bullshit by the shrink.
Yeah, I read not that long ago that the American Psychiatric Association, whatever they call it,
Right.
who every year or every couple of years they come out with a big book and they list different
Yeah.
ailments,
Yep.
and they deleted Asperger's from it because it was just such a all-encompassing thing, that they
I
didn't
think-
really think that there was any disease, if you will, that could be called Asperger's syndrome.
Well, it's the flavor. So on the DSM, they've now folded Asperger's, I think, into the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And but what's interesting is, and people that have Asperger's, they're not able to. They can't like read cues of people. They can't have conversations. And one thing they cannot do is they can't deliver a line. Nobody delivers a line any better than you do.
Yeah, the thing with Asperger's is the intelligent people who don't get along or don't enjoy communicating with other people, and that is certainly me.
Well, you know what though? So to me, your issue with other people is not that you don't sometimes know how to interact with them. You're just going, I don't want to, I don't have to, I'm going to do what I want. I mean, agree?
Yes, but also in terms of reading the signals,
Yeah.
whether I should trust this person, or
Right.
whether this person's lying to me, or whether this whether this joke is funny or not. It's not something I'm good at.
Well, I got a question. Do you agree you're good at delivering a line?
Sure.
So there's a part in it, I don't know if you've noticed, but you're describing, one of my favorite things that you describe is you go, so I get arrested, and I say to the guy, what do I have to do to get out of here? And
I remember that real well. And
wait, I love when you tell the story. Tell that one. I love that story. That's my favorite one.
what do I do to get out of here? Your bond has been set at $250,000. I said, so what do I do now? He says, do you have $250,000? I'm thinking $250,000, that's a whole lot of cash. Fill up a valise. I say, not on me.
and you understand that they had
Nobody is going to say that.
no, but they had no idea who you were.
$250,000, that's what lots of people make over a big chunk of their life.
Right. They were shocked. Cody tells the same story, and he doesn't deliver the line as good as you do. So it was funny when I was watching. I knew that you had some good lawyers, by the way.
I had great lawyers. I was right away picturing $250,000. That means 25 of those $10,000 envelopes. You need a small suitcase
Right.
or a big valise
Right.
or something. I went through my mind, 25 of those things would be like that. No, I don't have it on me.
Right, but nobody else, Bob, is going. People, when you're going, do you have $250,000? The cop who asked you that is going, well, of course you have $250,000. You're living in a $300 a month, room in Galveston. They had no idea. Hey, by the way, did you know? So I've gone through the Galveston thing, and by the way, you cannot be prosecuted for that murder again. You're aware of that?
I'm
right?
aware of that.
Yeah. So the story, it's very clear to me that what happened was Morris knew who you were. You haven't disputed that, right?
I didn't hide it.
What's that? Yeah, no, and he knew who you were. And the problem with Morris was that Morris was pushy and a pain in the ass, and he was putting pressure on you to basically set him up, in a house with you.
Yes.
And you wanted to leave.
I was finished
Right.
with Morris. I was finished
Right.
with Galveston. I was going someplace else for my life.
Now, one of the things that's interesting, I got to know you. You're a very private person. Do you agree?
No, I don't have close friends.
Yeah. And so I knew the Galveston story wasn't true as soon as I heard you say that you gave Morris a key to the place. I knew right there you would never give him a key.
I never give anybody a key
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
they were, very, very tight.
Right. So I knew. So I got a question. So you got away with that one, How did, I mean, when the verdict came out, do you remember what you said? You thought they said guilty, huh? Because you said, did they say not?
That was my little joke. Everybody reported that I looked absolutely shocked. I would have been shocked if they'd come back and said guilty. I can't say that I expected them to come back and say not guilty, because a hung jury was what I expected. But I remember turning to Dick and saying, did they say not? And then turning to Chip and saying, did they say not?
So
That was me.
you were just kind of taunting the,
That's my sense of humor.
so obviously, the story about giving him the key, now that we know, that was bullshit.
I didn't give him a key, but he had a key. I was aware that he had a key.
Well, so here's what you said. You said that you gave him a key, and then you said that when he shot in the house,
Took the key away.
you took the key away. So let me tell you right now, I've gotten to know you well enough. There's no way you give Morris a key to your house when you're not there. You're a private guy. And you're not concerned enough, you don't care enough about Morris to worry that he can use your place when you're gone. You would agree that's not you, right?
I wouldn't let him use the place, but I was aware that he had obtained a key, and I never took it away from him.
Well, you had said that you actually said you took the key away from him, but you said that you thought he had copied it.
Seemingly.
Yeah, so you also said that he shot at the house. Is that,
Yeah, he
that's
shot.
not, didn't that try to get us or no?
No. While I was in the bathroom, he shot the eviction notice, or said he shot the eviction notice, or said he shot at the eviction notice.
So, are you saying that happened?
Yes, that happened. I was peeing and I heard a shot and I came out of the bathroom with my prick in my hand, and he's got the gun in his hand and he's pointing at the eviction notice.
Okay.
And he said either I shot at it, I shot it, whatever he said he did, and I took the key away from him.
Do you know that, by the way, when you're describing what happened with Morris, and you're talking about, the actual event, you testified that you came in and Morris had a gun underneath
His
the
yellow
sweater. And there was a struggle, and it was kind of weird because you argued both self-defense and accident. Do you know what I mean by that? So you're basically saying it was self-defense, but the gun accidentally went off.
It was self-defense. He had a gun. I tried to take it away from him.
Do you know that you told Sarah a completely different story?
What did I tell Sarah?
You told Sarah that you came home and Morris was there and you went and you retrieved the gun.
I retrieved the gun.
That's what you told Sarah. I don't know why the DA's office didn't call him. I know you must have known about that. You told Sarah this when he came to visit you in jail. But the DA's office didn't call him. I don't know why. Do you remember that or no?
I'm trying to straighten out my mind. Sarah says I told Sarah
Yeah.
that. Say that again.
Sarah
says I told
says-
Sarah when he visited me in jail.
He visited you in jail, and you say to him, here, I'll get it a little more exactly. Was that for us, Lou?
No.
Okay.
I remember hiding the gun.
Yeah, you told Sarah that what happened is that when Sarah ended up, when you came home, here we go. So you said that here we go. One second. second. You said that when you came home, he was there, and you decided at that point you needed to get him out. He was not supposed to be there. You went and retrieved a gun. There was a struggle and the gun went off. Is that what happened or no?
Yeah, I went back to the apartment after having stayed at the San Luis Hotel for most of a week, and Sarah was in the, and Morris was in the apartment, and I told Morris that I wanted him out of the apartment and that he had to give me the gun, and then we had a fight.
But you told Sarah that you went and got the gun from another room. Do you remember telling Sarah that?
No,
I'm just trying to.
there weren't any other rooms. It was a studio with a,
Meaning
there was a bathroom.
Yeah, no, meaning you got the gun. You brought the gun out there to try to get him out of the house, out of the room.
That I didn't do.
So when Susan was trying to reach you over that summer before she died. She was trying to reach you to get money, and you weren't returning her calls. Do you know why?
I don't remember any such thing. I remember giving her money whenever she asked for it.
How much money do you think? By the way, do you still have your bank records? Did you keep your?
From 10 years ago?
Oh no, it'd be
15 years
keep
ago.
them.
No, I don't save stuff like that. I mean, I have what went on my tax returns. You know, if there was something that was deductible or there was income, and I had given the information to the accountant.
But you didn't save them. I'm just trying to figure out, because Susan was telling people near the time she died that she was upset with you because she couldn't find you. You seemed like you weren't returning your calls. She wrote you a letter. She wrote you a letter. Okay? What does that mean?
It's a time.
What's that?
Time to go.
3-5. How long do I have?
35 minutes.
I have 35 minutes?
That's what it
Okay. So, with Susan, when you end up, we know that you flew out here to see her. Flew out to Los Angeles. San Francisco on December 19th, right? You made the call from the plane. Right, you went to Eureka, you went to the Ford dealership, right? You picked up the car, and then the next day, I don't know if you know this, you made phone calls for Garbersville. So where were you going? Why were you down there?
I don't remember what exactly I was doing in Garberville, and I've tried to remember, and I really don't know.
You weren't going to San Francisco, though, right? Because you had just come from San Francisco the day before, so that doesn't make sense.
I wasn't going to San Francisco.
So, I think, Bob, that you drove down to Los Angeles, that you drove down there, and
Killed Susan.
I do.
Drove her back.
And so the other thing is, you don't take red-eye flights very often. Did you know that?
Very infrequently.
You would agree, right? Almost never do you take a red-eye flight. Agreed?
Yes.
So I was trying to figure out, and usually you don't buy your tickets right at the counter. Would you agree?
Usually I make reservations.
Right.
And
So what made you, so here's what's weird. You also had a pattern, which you've explained. You fly from from San Francisco to Eureka, New York, San Francisco to Eureka, Eureka back to San Francisco and back to New York. So on December 23rd, you end up buying that ticket at 10 at night at the counter in San Francisco. You didn't fly for Eureka, so why was it that you bought straight from San Francisco? Why didn't you go back to Eureka? What were you doing that made you get down to San Francisco? And why? It just doesn't make sense. I was just trying to understand it. I didn't get it.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just not gonna be able to answer that, because I just don't.
Okay, listen, that's fair. But you agree it's hard to explain.
Unusual.
Yeah, okay. Listen, fair. So, and I couldn't even figure out why you were flying out. At that time, you already sold your house. So what made you take a 4-day trip? What were you doing out there? Do you remember?
I think I was wrapping up my affairs. I had sold the house.
Right.
I still had an office.
Right.
I still had a car. And I think I went out there to take my stuff out of the office. It was rented. And to sell the car.
Did you end up, what did you end up doing with the car?
I sold it.
Did you remember where? You sold it in Eureka, right? In whatchamacallit, in Trinidad. I think you got them. You sold the car in Trinidad, right?
I had sold the house in Trinidad. I still had the car.
Okay.
I think I sold the car in San Francisco. I'm just not sure what I did with that. That was a Ford Explorer.
Right.
Green car. They don't make them anymore. It was an SUV with just 2 doors.
Right.
I just don't remember where I sold it, but when I went out to California, I was wrapping up my affairs, taking my stuff out of the office and selling the car.
So
I just don't remember where I sold the car.
But you agree it was very strange for you to be going out here. When you were asked about it, you said you were out here for a couple of weeks. But
That's what I thought.
right, but you were only out there for 4 days.
4 days.
And you agree you didn't take 4-day trips to San Francisco back then.
Not from New York.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So as you sit here, it's fair to say you really can't explain it.
I can't explain it.
Hey, listen, that's fair. So when we get to the writing, you've been shown the letter and the cadaver note, and your response was when you saw it, I'm not going to show it to you. You know what you said, right? You remember what you said when you saw it. When Mark and Andrew showed you, right?
They asked me why somebody would do that. I said it's block letters. They're trying to disguise their handwriting.
Well, let me tell you what you said. What you said is you said, listen, first of all, you agree, as you sit here today, you agree that whoever wrote that letter, they killed Susan. Agreed?
You see, I don't know that. I mean, maybe there were 2 people who killed Susan. It doesn't have to be one person. There could be 2 people. One person could go into the house to shoot Susan, and the other person could be the driver.
Okay. No, let me. This is what I mean. Whether the person was the shooter or the driver, whoever wrote the note was a part of killing her.
Yes.
You agree, right?
Yes.
No question, right?
Whoever wrote that note had to be involved in Susan's death.
Okay. So, and you've looked at it, and when you look at that writing, Bob, your comment was it's block lettering, it's like a typewriter. You know that writing is not like a typewriter. I've had the experts look at it, and you know what they came back with? And I'm being very honest with you. I can show you the handwriting report. Do you want to see it?
No.
Okay, well, so here's what they said. You know what they said?
They said, look, this looks just like this, and this looks just like this, and the
But-
chances are 99% or 95 or...
No, they didn't even, Bob, they didn't even go here's what they said. They said you wrote it. They said no question. So look, this is the handwriting. One of these is the one you wrote to Susan before, and one of them is the cadaver note. Can you tell me which one of these you didn't write?
I couldn't begin to.
Yeah, because they look identical. Agreed?
If not identical, extremely similar.
So would you agree that there's no way that somebody could just randomly write that way? So either, you would agree, either you wrote both or somebody forged one of them. Would you agree that would have to be the explanation? No?
I've seen what these writing exemplars mean. I've seen a friend of mine, a lawyer,
Yeah,
showed me things that are not the same in both of them.
right?
I mean, look at the N in Benedict and then the other N. They don't really look very similar at all, just looking at the ends. So I would agree that they look very, very, very similar.
Well, let me just ask you though on this. Do you agree that either you wrote both of them? That's one, you agree that's a possibility and that's a fair,
possibility.
and that's a, when you look at it, that's a fair thing for somebody to think, right? That's reasonable.
Yes.
Reasonable, right?
Reasonable.
Okay, so the other possibility, which could be that one of these, somebody was trying to forge and copy your writing. Would you agree? That could be a
That's
possibility.
a possibility.
Okay, here's the problem. When you look at the writing, what the experts can say is when you trace it, that's what it's called. You're really drawing, you're not writing. You can tell when somebody traces it. Both of these are what we call naturally executed. So you wrote both of them. So I know, Bob, that you wrote both of these. And the issue is going to be, there's kind of two choices that you have, two ways you could go. You could say, listen, I went down there, and you would have to explain why you went down there.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that and the people's comments and the stuff like that.
What do you mean the people's
Somebody
comments?
could have gone into the house and saw that Susan was lying there.
Right. And you agree that that did not happen. You did not drive down there and find Susan's body, even though you were not the
I'm
killer.
not going to agree to anything like
Okay.
that. I mean,
Okay.
that's evidentiary.
Okay, so you don't want to answer that. No. What I'm telling you is, I'm just saying that did not happen. You agree. You did not just find Susan's body and somebody else killed her.
I did not find Susan's body.
Okay, so what it means, and I told you, have I been, from what you can tell, does it seem like I've been pretty honest with you and pretty
Yes.
fair? Okay, so here's where I'm at. I am very confident, Bob, that what's going to happen is you're going to be charged with murder. We're going to bring you back to Los Angeles. By the way, do you think you'll fight extradition, or do you think that you'll come back willingly?
I'm going to do whatever the lawyers tell me
Okay,
to do.
and listen, and that's fair. And listen, I appreciate you talking to me and listening, hearing me out when you didn't have to. I mean, you know, it's I appreciate it. We're going to bring you back there, and we're going to try you. And what'll happen is that we will include Kathy's murder in this and Morris's murder in this. Did you think the Galveston DAs were very good?
No.
If you're guessing, just kind of judging, what's your opinion of me? What do you think? Sitting across me for a couple hours now.
Seem competent.
That's confidence. Not a real good.
You seem, I'm sure you know your job. You seem to be quite competent at it. What else would I say?
Well, so I'm good at my job. I'm a very, very dedicated prosecutor.
Well, I have about 6 reasons why I got acquitted. The first one is I had the best lawyers in the court.
No question.
The second one is that Cody Cazales turned the jury off big time.
Right.
He walked around that courtroom with his chest out and his badge and gun out.
Right.
And made it very apparent to everybody that he thought this whole thing with the jury and the judge and everything is a waste of time. I'm Cody Gonzalez. I say he did it. That's all you need. That's
two.
Yeah.
What else?
The Galveston DA, Mr. Sistrunk,
Yeah.
was pretty good, but his assistant,
Who's the mumbler? Which the one? Which is the guy that mumbled? It's the other one, right?
Joel,
I couldn't understand a lot of what they
couldn't
said.
understand what he said, and he was just so totally wrong about so many things that was another big reason in my mind why I got acquitted.
What about number 4?
Let me see if I can get to number 4. Is that the jury essentially believed me, or if they didn't believe everything that I said, Sistrunk wasn't really, and Sistrunk had turned most of it over to Joel, whatever his name
Right.
is, and Joel had done a, terrible job.
Right. What about number 5?
I don't know anymore,
What?
but there was
What-
6 things which I thought resulted, and this might be number 1, everybody thought that I was going to get up on the stand and go bananas.
Right.
I killed her, I wanted to do it, or kill him.
Like Jack Nicholson in what's that movie? You know the man talking about, he goes, "You can't handle the truth."
I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So they thought that's what you were going to do.
They thought I was going to freak out.
Yeah. Now, listen, you were brilliant on the stand.
And
I will tell you what-
Sistrunk thought I was going to freak out, and I think even my lawyers thought there was a real good chance that I would freak out.
How much? Hey, Bob. How much of what you did on the stand was you, and how much of it was them kind of helping? In other words, did you do that all yourself? That was brilliant. I mean, I got to tell you, it was brilliant.
No, I mean, I went over what happened repeatedly,
Right?
and the jury consultant, Robert Hirschman,
Yeah.
he said, you can't say things like that. And I had just said that, well, I'm a millionaire, I don't have to work, I get up most mornings and smoke pot. And he said, our jurors are not millionaires.
Right.
Our jurors don't get up every morning and smoke pot. You can't walk in and say that. Just don't say it. There's no reason you should say it.
Right.
Don't say it. It's going to turn everybody off.
You know what? You know what you didn't say about the reason that you. It's funny when you talk about Galveston. Like you'll be asked. You talk about it when you're explaining what happened. You'll say, "What was my defense? How was I going to beat the case?" You don't. When you talk about it, you don't talk about it like this is what happened. You talk about it like, how did I beat it? In other words, when you're talking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's Michael Jackson's thing. Beat it, beat it, beat it. That's how I felt about it.
No, but what I mean is, Bob, is that, so it's a difference between somebody saying, hey, this is what happened, and I told my story of what happened, versus this is what I decided to say that was going to beat the case. You talk about how self-defense, you'll say, in Texas, there are very few things you cannot do to somebody who, you know,
Find in your house.
in your house. You say you're not supposed to shoot them, but there is a big case where it happened from long distance with a rifle, and when you're talking about it, though, you don't sound like you're talking about, hey, this is what happened. You sound like you're talking about
What should I say?
what should you say? I mean, do you agree that's what it sounds like?
And to some extent it is. As
Yeah.
I just said, I can't say on such and such a morning,
Right.
I got up and I got stoned and I went out. And
And by the way, when you talk about dismembering Morris and you say how stoned you were, etc., there's a line that you say. How much time do we have, Mike?
Oh, about 15 minutes.
Okay. There's a line that you say, Let me find it. Hey, by the way, Bob, have you better talking to us, right, than being out there? You haven't minded having this conversation with us?
I haven't minded, excuse me, at all.
I'm just looking for it. You had a very interesting comment that I want to find here. Okay. When you listen to this, Bob, you sound like you say, well, I decided I would wait until I would pick it up and carry it out there. And then I realized I wasn't picking up that body and carrying it anywhere because it was much
Too heavy.
and you stopped yourself. I think what you were going to say was it was much heavier than Kathy. Listen for a sec.
So what did you decide to do to get rid of the body?
Can you hear?
Well, I decided I'd wait till night and I'd pick it up and carry it out of there. And then I realized I wasn't picking up that body and carrying it anywhere because it was much. I mean, I wasn't strong enough to do it. I could drag it out, but I just couldn't see. I mean, I thought about putting it in a sleeping bag or something and then dragging the whole thing out, but good God, that's ridiculous. So instead, I decided to. It wasn't till the next day when I went, I can't just drag it out, that I'm going to have to dismember this body.
So, you said that you were really drunk and really high, etc. But you know, you went to Walmart and you got the money orders to pay Morris's rent in advance for a long time. Do you remember doing that?
Sure.
So that says to me that you clearly had to know what you were doing. That's a smart move because you did not want people to find out. You know,
I did not want the landlord, Klaus
Right.
Dillman,
right?
to go to the house and say
Right.
to Morris,
Right.
where's the check?
Do you know what? Tell me, how did you? So, by the way, cutting somebody up with a saw is a really difficult thing to do.
I agree.
And you've done that now twice, correct?
I'm not going to go there. I've
Okay,
done
okay,
that
okay,
now
all right.
Once.
Okay, I gotta ask. You were able, if you know that the way the body was cut, somebody knew how to cut the joints.
You see, I don't know that. Subsequently, I've been told that a surgeon would cut up a body the same way you
Yeah.
do a chicken. You go into the joint and you cut around the joint to get rid of all the ligaments, and then the thing comes out. You're not going to go and try to cut through the goddamn bone like
Right.
I did, which was hard.
Well, you did a pretty good job. The thing that
Cutting through a bone is not easy with anything.
no, it's definitely not easy. It's definitely not easy. I don't think you were drunk. I mean, I think you knew what you were doing. You didn't cut yourself, right? I mean, you were able to get this
I
done.
don't remember if I cut myself or not, but I know that cutting up that body the way I was doing it was the hard way. The proper way is what a surgeon would do with a scalpel, and he would cut around the ligaments and then do it in the joint, not on the bone.
Would you agree, Bob, that somebody who could dismember somebody like that, you can understand why we would suspect you of having
Yeah,
killed
that's
you?
what Kathy, Mother, and what Gilberti, and I'm sure the other ones think. I did
Okay.
to Kathy.
So I would like to, are you willing to continue? You're going to be going to court right now.
I'm going to court.
Yeah, this morning. I was hoping we could talk to you longer, but they have to get you to court. I would like to talk to you afterwards. It's up to you if you're willing to talk to me or not. You know, it's like I said before, this is all voluntary.
No, I hear you, and I have no problem with what you're saying.
Okay.
But what's going through my mind
Sure.
is, if I tell you what I know
Okay?
that answers your questions. What can you possibly do for me?
Okay, I'll tell you what. If you are willing to speak to me when you get back from court, we can talk about that. And I can tell you, Bob.
I'm very willing to talk to you, and as I said, I'm 72. If I go ahead with what my lawyers are telling me and fight with you, and let's say I win, then I'm 2 years later, 74, with a couple of years left.
Bob, I'm gonna tell you something right now. You're not gonna win.
But I'm just saying, if, from
Right,
my
right,
view,
right, right.
if I'm looking at the
But-
upside, what is the upside?
Well, no,
I go to court and I win,
Right.
and I'm 74.
No, it's
and not
there-
healthy.
there-
I've got this same body.
there's
I know you can't give me a different body.
no, there's no upside. But even more than that, Bob, what I think is important, and I honestly think that there is good in you that wants to. I think you feel bad about Kathy. I think you feel bad about Susan, and I think that you're trying to figure out a way where you can. Let me just put it this way: you would agree that there are some things today that you have not wanted to answer, and the reason you haven't wanted to answer them is because you don't want to incriminate yourself, right? I mean, is that a fair statement?
Sure.
Okay, so I would like to talk to you. You're going to go into court today. If you're probably going to, I'm sure though, but I don't know. This place, Louisiana, is weird. On Sunday, we don't go to court. We don't have court on Sundays in
I had
California.
no idea Louisiana did,
Yeah.
but you're right.
Yeah.
Louisiana is very weird.
So they're gonna bring you into court today, and what's gonna happen is tomorrow morning we are filing charges against you that will be we can't file them over the weekend. They're going to be special circumstances charges. You will not be able to get. There'll be no bail. You agree? You've seen the.
I can never understand how you can give somebody, you're going to charge a person with murder, and then you're going to give him bail. By the time you've got probable cause for murder, this person who you're going to give bail to, if they have the money, is going to split.
And that's, you said, of course. There's a point where you go. Mark and Andrew ask you in essence, what were you planning to do? And you go, $250,000. I'm gone. And you put your arms.
Yeah, like I'm dying to go back to Galveston so that Cody Cazales can take my glasses and take my shoes. That way I can walk around sightless and barefoot. No, I wasn't going to go back to the $250,000. You guys, or at least what I saw on the arrest warrant, was that you had said bail at $1 million.
No.
And I had said to the fellow, well, if I give you $1 million now, are you going to let me go?
Yeah.
And he said, no, we're charging you as a fugitive. I don't know why that says $1 million.
Yeah, it's so I can tell you that today you're not going to, and you understand.
If you told me something else, I don't know that I would believe you.
No, listen, and I've been honestly, Bob, you'll go back. Have you caught me in any lies today during our conversation? Have you seen any lies that I've said to you about anything?
No, I'm not aware of any lies.
I've tried to be honest. I will tell you that I've been doing these kinds of cases for many years, and do you know the reason why I win them?
I haven't the faintest. Oh, no, I mean, you seem like you're probably
No.
a competent DA.
That's not why I win.
Why do you win them?
I win because the guys that I'm prosecuting, they did it. It's a lot harder to win on the other side.